Hello everyone. Today I have a really special guest and a very dear friend of mine. You may know her as Teal Scott. Well, Teal is the best-selling author of a book called The Spiritual Catalyst. And Teal has a website called thespiritualcatalyst.com and has done workshops pretty much all over America and now in London as well. So welcome, Teal, to this interview.
It's nice to be here.
Great. So Teal, I wanted to talk a little bit about yourself and your books and the work that you do because we have a workshop coming up in London on the 5th of April 2014. So that's going to be an awesome workshop. So if you just kind of start off by talking about the work that you do, what is the Spiritual Catalyst for those of out there that haven't really heard about you? Pretty much most people seeing this will have heard about you and know about you. So what is the Spiritual Catalyst and what is the work that you do and why do you do it?
I like to think of the spiritual catalyst as something that catalyzes people into their own expansion. Mm-hmm. So it is the vibration, the intention that I came down here with to insert myself into people's reality and then enable that person's reality to then move towards the furthest most extent of their expansion. What that means is we're taking a person from where they are to where they want to be. Doesn't matter whether that's about finances or a love life or an illness. That's basically what a spiritual catalyst does. Okay. But it's not always a super enjoyable process. Anybody who understands expansion knows that sometimes you have to be pushed to discomfort to make major change. So it's not like moving into your expansion is always a super enjoyable process. Sometimes what it is that interacting with a spiritual catalyst means your shadows are going to come up, right?
Absolutely, because from our greatest pain, we have our greatest kind of development and greatest growth. And yes. A lot of people that have grown know that through the pain that they've suffered.
Yes.
So how do you do this work?
How do I do it? I don't know. That's like asking an oyster, how do you spend time in the ocean? I just do. I feel like this has been sort of something that I can't avoid. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I was born with these tendencies, I was born with these desires, I was born doing this with people, and so this is the most natural state for me to be in.
Sure. I guess you do a lot of that through your YouTube videos with the messages that you spread, because you've got hundreds of videos now with millions of hits all around the world. So every week you have different videos on different themes and subjects. So I guess that's a way of reaching the masses out there. And I guess also your workshops.
Yes.
Yeah. So
well, to me, society is just like a big red button that's begging to be pushed. That's sort of what I feel like. So. Excellent. If nobody else is going to push the button, I'm going to be the person to push the button because I want to know what happens. You know?
Okay, excellent. And I'll be right there watching. I'm intrigued to see what happens. So, for those of them out there that have not been to any workshops or seen any of your workshops online, because when you do a workshop, you have a live stream so people can join the workshop online through your Spiritual Catalyst page, right?
Yes.
So, what do you do at the workshop? What is the purpose of a workshop, and how does it help people?
Okay, we'll go here. This is a deep subject. So, the most basic universal law of this universe which we're living in, of course there are multiple universes, but the universe that we're living in is based on the law of attraction. That means that whatever vibration you hold is mirrored exactly. So when we live in a reality that is based on the law of attraction, that means that you can only share the same reality with people whose vibrations match your own. We can use this as healthcare professionals to our advantage. That means that if people are sitting in the room together, they have similar issues, similar desires. So when I hold a workshop, I understand that all 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 people potentially that show up are going to have very similar vibrations. That means that when I invite one of them up onto the stage, which is what we do, we pretend we're all in kindergarten and everybody raises their hand, and the person who has the question which pertains most closely to the rest of the group will sort of light up. And when I invite them up on stage with me and I work them through their issue, I know that it's applying to everyone else in the group. And so it's a collective group healing. And you'll watch as the vibration of the group goes up and up and up and up and up and up throughout the totality of the workshop. So I like to say that it's a group healing session that is disguised as a question and answer session.
Excellent. And does that work the same for people watching online?
Yes.
Okay, because I guess they've got similar issues that they want to talk about in terms of the question. So whatever answers are out there affect them in some way as well.
Oh yes, and every single question. This is the big thing to learn, because some people will sit in the audience and they might say, internally, well, that one doesn't apply to me. I just tune out to that one, but it does. Yeah. It wouldn't be talked about in your reality unless it did. Absolutely. So if we are using these to the, I guess, extent of their ability to help us, then what you'd be doing every single time somebody asks a question is trying to apply it to your own life.
Absolutely. The workshop you did in November, it was so apparent to see that the vibrations were at a certain level when we started out, and throughout the day the vibrations kind of lifted so high, and there were lots of people that had friendships at the end of it, and it was great. The atmosphere was fantastic by the end of that workshop. So I'm really looking forward to April, looking forward to kind of spending some time with you again and experiencing the workshop again. So that's really cool. So Teal, you blog on a regular basis as well,
yes.
And one of your recent blogs was about your foundation, okay, and your kind of vision for helping people through your foundation.
So yeah.
Let's have a talk about that.
All right. So what I've designed essentially is a nonprofit business, which is an investment company. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to be doing with that basically is we're going to be investing money on top of donations and other stuff you usually do with nonprofits. We're going to be investing in anything that is going to advance mankind. So anything that's going to be aimed towards positive world change. So let's say that somebody comes out with like the next wave of, let's call it like zero fuel energy or something like that. If it's going to benefit mankind, essentially, we're going to invest in it. Sure. And when that money comes back in, it's not going towards paying out anybody. Like no executives are getting paid out, no owners are getting paid out. That money is literally going to be rolled back into more investments. So if you do the math, after X amount of these investments, you've got a company which is literally unstoppable. It's got so many investments that it works like a typical for-profit investment company, which are some of the wealthiest companies in the world, except for it's aimed at positive world change. Sure. And once you get to that level of income and that level of notoriety, what you can start doing is affecting government, which is what we're the most excited about. Because government right now is run by big business. Mm-hmm. What most people don't understand about their politicians is that when you can lobby politicians and things like that, then that means as a company, if I want something passed that's going to benefit my product, all I need to do is essentially pay off a senator. So they go in and they say, okay, yeah, we want this. I'm going to sign the bill. So right now, there are a lot of awesome technologies and awesome things getting blocked because of these big corporations and the sway and hold and chokehold, essentially, they have over the governments. Yeah. So my goal here is to play the same game, only for a different purpose. I'm not one of those people who thinks we're going to do anything with the society we've got going right now if we pull ourselves out completely and just sort of fade away, because most people are not in that circumstance. Most people have families to support. Absolutely. They're too far into the system now that it's like, a rat on a wheel. Yeah. So if we're a rat running on a wheel and we can't get out of it because we've got to support our family, the likelihood of just pulling out of that, very slim. So somebody who's going to do the most impact is someone who's going to come in, play like you're one of them, get to the very top, and shift it from within, which is exactly what I want to do with this company. Mm-hmm. I want to start lobbying governments for like prison care reform. I want to affect the food industry, the healthcare industry. All of these huge goals that we have are going to be facilitated through the company which I just started.
Wow, that's amazing. Is your vision just in the U.S. or
it's all over.
Global change?
It's global.
Excellent. That's so cool, because it's so needed, because our government systems, our political system, educational system, everything is in need of reform, because things just aren't working.
Which is why I don't want to specialize.
Yeah, absolutely.
And frankly, this company is going to make the kind of money where we don't need to specialize, really.
Fantastic. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's really cool. You talked a bit about the rat race. And
mm-hmm.
That's the best way of putting it. Most of us, I guess, are in a rat race. We have to work, we have to pay bills, mortgages, support families, etc. So often people don't find their purpose in life or maybe know their purpose, but don't live the purpose because they're too deeply drawn into the rat race. Okay, mm-hmm. So for those of us, what would you say? What would your advice be to get out of the rat race, or to really find your purpose, your passion, and live that and make that your dream and that your goal?
The powers that be that you have come into, whether that's the family structure or the social structure, have convinced you that you will only find happiness if fill in the blank. So this is the major problem we've got. You'll only find happiness if you have that type of house. You're going to only find happiness if you have this 401k. You're only going to have this amount of happiness if you get married and have children. And the thing is that we're starting to play with this middleman of happiness. So if you're keeping a job, this is what I like to say. If you're keeping a job you don't enjoy, right? You are doing that because you think it's going to make you happy. Because I think if I get that check every month, that's going to make me feel better than not having that check every month. But it's ironic because I'm doing that for my happiness. That's the only reason anyone does anything, right? The only reason anyone does anything on this earth, any single action, if you drop back, is that because they want to feel better. Yeah. So if everything I'm doing because of happiness, and I'm keeping this crappy job because I think it's going to make me happy, but it's making me miserable right now, then I am playing that job as a middleman to happiness. So if we want to get out of the rat race, our number one goal has to be to go towards happiness first.
Okay. So how would one find their happiness? So they're in this rat race, they're in a job they don't enjoy, they don't know what their purpose is, they don't know what their passion is, they're kind of like numb because of everything society throws at them. So how do they start from the very basics? If someone's vibration is quite low, how do they find their happiness and move to a stage where they find their purpose, they find their joy, and decide to live that?
They have to tune back into their emotions. Mm-hmm. That's step one. Step one is you cannot be numb. Mm-hmm. So you have to start paying attention to the way that you feel. Mm-hmm. And if that means carrying a journal around with you 24 hours a day so you can write down, once your timer goes off, you can set your timer to go off at like 10-minute intervals, write down just a few words about sensations that are going on in your body or emotions that you might be able to name. We have to tune back into our emotional guidance system. Sure. That's the only way to know whether we enjoy something or don't enjoy something. And then it's really just as simple as going in the direction of things that feel good. Eventually, it will become intolerable to be at that job you don't like, and you will have to make a transition, whether it's gradual or whether it's an immediate jump. Mm-hmm. And you're going to start to figure out the things that do cause you to feel happy, and you can start experimenting. This is one of the things I'd like to tell people to do. You really got to try it. I mean, there's 1.5 million things to try here, and you don't know whether you like them or not, and all you risk by trying them is figuring out that you don't like something or that you do. So you try all these things, and every time that gives you more information about yourself, more information about what you actually like. And then you roll across that thing, or you whittle it down to what elements you really love about your life, and you just invest more in those things. And then it's like a natural unfolding, which is difficult because the people sort of don't understand that throwing it over to the universe is actually trusting their higher self. So if you throw it over to the universe, giving the universe more information about what you like, which is all you're doing when you're desiring. You don't have to say, hey, universe, I like this. It's always watching. It understands. So what you'll watch is these opportunities unfold. So maybe I figured out that my passion is spiritual work. So if my passion is spiritual work and I keep going in the direction of that, just one foot in front of the other, whatever feels good, I'll have opportunities pop up. Here's this speaking opportunity. I'll roll across like things I want to attend. Maybe somebody will interact with me who has a lot of sway somewhere that says, hey, I want to work with you. And then they tell 500 other people. That's the way that it works. And you just keep putting one foot in front of the other in the direction of your happiness. And eventually you figure out, guess what? I'm not really spending much time unhappy. In fact, it's a rarity. In fact, when it happens, I'm like, whoa, where'd that come from?
And through doing what you are happy about, what makes you feel happy, you kind of, I guess, find your purpose and your passion in that, right?
Yes, but we're damn afraid to listen to our emotions because we don't understand what they are. We don't understand that it's a guidance system. We think that they're just a sort of offshoot. What the hell are they for? I mean, most people don't ask themselves that question. What are emotions for? Why would you have them? Are you serious?
Exactly, yeah. And your intuition is really linked to your emotional system, isn't it?
Entirely.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know what's right for them, what's good for them, in that they switch off their intuition by not listening to their emotions because they're so in this kind of rat race, I guess, is the best way of putting it. Excellent. So when someone starts paying attention to what makes them feel good and what makes them feel happy, is it true that they start raising their vibration to the point where what makes them unhappy, i.e. this job, they're no longer a vibrational match to that job, so hence they create other opportunities in their life to then do the work that they were kind of born to do, I guess?
That was very well put.
Oh, great.
Super succinct.
Thank you.
Yes, you can only be a match to things when you're in resistance to them, or when you're fully going in the direction of them, like in a desirous way. So obviously, if your vibration increases and you don't enjoy your job, you can't be a match to the job anymore. So you'll find that it's interesting because people sometimes call me and they say, I've been fired from my job or something like that. And the interesting part about that is that it's always in divine order because they've been asking to not work at that place for a very long time. They're just not aware of it because they're telling themselves a lie. I want that check. I can't afford to live without the check. Yeah, but on a vibrational level, on a thought-based level, you've been asking to be doing something else for so long, the universe is like, okay.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what happened to me fairly recently. So I'm asking the universe to fulfill my dreams and desires of the spiritual work that I'm born to do and the books that I'm meant to write and those sort of things. And I've just created an opportunity where I'm going to be starting to do all that now. So that feels great. Excellent. So Teal,
but we need to understand as people that when the universe sees voids, it seeks to fill them. That's what we get super scared of when we lose things.
Right.
We don't understand that a void has been created and the universe fills voids, so it will not stay empty, it will not stay open. Instead, something very, very much better usually will come to fill in that space.
Right. And I guess it's just about having faith in the universe that, the universe has our back and, the law of attraction is always working and we will be supported and guided.
Yes, which is easier said than done, of course.
Yeah, because
so a great many people will not be able to access those vibrations yet. But what they can do is realize how painful it is to not live in the direction of your happiness. They understand that it's painful, these states of doing things which cause you to feel pain. So even if we can reach people on a logic level and they can just start incrementally taking steps, they don't need to be in a space where they completely trust this universe yet. But ultimately, yes, if we could get ourselves into the space of understanding that this universe doesn't just have our back, its expansion is dependent upon us getting what we want.
Absolutely.
Then we would be able to leave it to the universe, really trust in a way where things would turn out for us and we would not have to extend much effort for it to do so.
Great. So it's all about trust and faith and believing in a greater force.
Those elusive unicorns, yes.
Excellent. Okay, Teal, I wanted to talk a bit about love and relationships because this is an area that causes a lot of pain for a lot of people. Certainly whilst coaching clients and doing NLP work with them, there's a lot of issues on love, relationships, and the rest. But ultimately, I think it boils down to self-love or a lack of it and a lack of self-worth. So I want to link the love relationships and filling your own cup up kind of thing. Yeah? So,
okay. On a vibrational level, you are always a match to what you're a match to based on your thoughts. Your thoughts are the most dominant vibration within you. So if you're thinking thoughts like, I'm worthless, I'm worth nothing, you can only attract into your experience beings which focus those types of energies on you, or situations where you're going to interpret it that way. So for us to be in a space where we are in a loving relationship, we have to already cultivate that vibration of love, and that's really the bummer of the situation. I'll just be frank. Is that in a universe, and it's only a bummer because we don't understand that this is how it works. We've been working our world differently than it actually works. But to the rest of the universe that understands the way this universe works, law of attraction, understands that what you think becomes, not what you become you think about, right?
Absolutely.
So if we're going to play it the way that this actually works, we got to understand that we have to get ourselves into the mental space, into the vibration, into the idea first before it comes a reality. So it's not about, I really sort of hate it when people say you have to love yourself to get love, because it's like really painful when you're in that position where you don't love yourself. So rather than to say that, I'd say what you want to do is maximize your probability of running into an enjoyable relationship by maximizing the enjoyability of your relationship with yourself. The way to do that, essentially, is to begin to show yourself love, to treat yourself the way you want to be treated by other people, and then you will attract them into your experience in that way.
Okay. A lot of people find that hard because they sabotage themselves. They sabotage that love for self. Whether it's whatever issues they've had in their childhood or experiences in their life that show them that actually they're worthless, and then they start believing it. And obviously it starts from childhood, doesn't it, in terms of the messages that they get from parents, society, schools, whatever. So what would be the basic steps for people to take to kind of start loving themselves a little?
I think the first step that people need to take is to question the thoughts they think. We don't often question them. We sort of just take them at face value, and we don't really dive into them and flip them around and turn them up on end and really explore whether we believe that or don't really believe that. We sort of are spoon-fed these beliefs, and then we own them when they're not really ours to begin with.
Absolutely.
So you can only own and you can only have a right to a belief if you question it. So if I believe I'm worthless, I had better prove that. But we don't think about it that way. Wow, what if I have to prove that I'm worthless? How do I prove that? And most people, even if they hate themselves, have a difficult time proving that.
But if they think they're worthless, don't they have evidence to show that they're worthless because something happens to them, and another relationship fails, or they lose a job, or those sort of things? So
they do have evidence sometimes, but less evidence than you'd think. Which is why I like to take people there first. But then what you can do is you can shoot holes in the evidence. That's my favorite thing to do with people. So if I'm using this, let's say I failed this paper and that's how I know I'm worthless. How do we shoot holes in that belief? If I failed this paper, I'm worthless. How do we shoot holes in that? And most people, when they get outside the box enough to think about that, can see the error in that kind of thinking. And when the brain is given that kind of proof, that it's not a viable argument, then ultimately it won't believe in it. And that's what we're doing. We're working with the brain, because the brain is the only one that really thinks that way. So the brain does need proof to think the opposite way. But the first way that you're going to do that is to unravel the proof you're using. You can't come in and say, no, brain, I really love myself, I'm worth something. The brain's going to be like, yeah, right. So you basically have to take the evidence that it's using and take each item of that evidence and shoot it. So that's step one. Step two is figure out what you'd rather believe and figure out how that's true. Why don't we look at how I am worth something?
Yeah.
We don't usually orient our focus that way because we're just looking for proof that we're terrible.
Sure.
But the other super good thing, one of my favorite techniques, which I actually give in this book, because I just barely wrote a book on how to love yourself. It's going to be published this next year.
Excellent.
So essentially, this book that I wrote, one of the things that I told people to do is to live according to the question, what would someone who loved themselves do? Because right now we don't love ourselves, we're not in that vibration, we don't know what we would do yet. But we can kind of guess what somebody else who loved themselves would do. In fact, it's an intuitive thing. So if we're living by that mantra, what I mean by mantra is it's something you repeat all day, every day. You live by it almost like a creed.
Absolutely.
So you repeat, what would someone who loved themselves do? You're asking yourself that to every single question that you might have, every decision. You're applying it when you don't know what to do with yourself. And it's sort of like about the balls to just do what the answer is. Because you don't know why it is what it is. But let's say that I have to decide between going to a party or not going to a party. If the answer is, and the intuitive answer, instantly you get in your head is, don't go, you're not going to know why. So you got to just kind of let yourself go blindly into the night and live according to the answer to that question and see what happens to your life. And it's a lot harder than you imagine because people get to realize, and that's really the wake-up call. Wake-up calls are always what's essential first because most people don't realize just how much they hate themselves until they try to do a process like this. And then they're like, wow, I make absolutely none of my decisions based on what's good for me. No decision in my life do I make based off of my happiness and my self-love. I make decisions based on everything else. But I didn't know it until I did this kind of practice.
Sure. I think that question, what would someone who loved themselves do, is probably the single most important question to use. And I'm really happy to hear about your book coming out about self-love. That's so needed. My book that I'm writing right now also has a chapter on self-love, and I've actually quoted you in that question and that process because I've tried it with myself, with my clients, and it works really well.
Yep. It does.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. It's one of my favorite ones because a lot of people are like, well, that's really cute and quaint, because that's the sort of attitude towards self-help people who are always like, what would someone who loved themselves do? And it just sounds like that. But the reality is that it's like the mother lode, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not the kind of person who likes to mess around with, surface crap. Mm-hmm. I'm not into cutesy stuff. the processes that I use are really brutal. And this one is like really brutal, but it's disguised in this little sugary package. If you try to go in the direction of what feels good, you'll find out just how unself-loving you are, and it will be really hard to stick with those kinds of things because you'll be in a situation, which is what I hope, see? You'll be in a situation where you have to say, do I quit my job or do I keep my job? What would someone who loves themselves do? Crap, they would quit their job. Now what?
Yeah.
See, that's difficult. It's not this sugary practice of like, oh, someone who loved themselves would let themselves buy a scarf. It's going to mess your whole life up.
Sure. Okay, so let's link self-love to relationships because what you attract is a vibrational match to how you're feeling at that point.
Yes.
So if you want to attract the ultimate relationship, a soulmate, twin flame relationship, one needs to kind of fill themselves up with the self-love and do those processes and really know themselves and find what makes them happy and live in a way where, you know, they're knowing what makes them happy and what a person that loves themselves would do.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So in terms of then attracting that soulmate twin flame relationship, because it's about expansion as well, right? That kind of a relationship. So can you tell us a bit more about a soulmate twin flame relationship, getting to the process where you actually attract that, and what you can expect in terms of people think there's going to be a wonderful hunky-dory, lovey-dovey relationship. Well, actually, it can be, but actually there's a lot of expansion in there as well and a lot of growth.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a bit about that.
Okay. I'm like, where do I start on this subject? Basically, when you ask for a soulmate or when you ask for a twin flame, you're asking for your biggest mirror. We, of course, want that to be enjoyable, so it's not like most people have a twin flame coming towards them, which is going to cause them a lot of contrast and, it's going to be terrible. More likely, it's going to be really enjoyable, but it will definitely push your buttons. Because in a twin flame relationship, you're going to be able to put up with a lot of things. I don't want to say put up with, but you'll take on things that you would have originally thought of as a deal breaker. In order to be a match to a person who is so closely your mirror, essentially, and somebody who's going to be in that enjoyable space, you have to be in a full space of self-acceptance. That's the most crucial vibration. In fact, there's nobody that doesn't that when people line up with their soulmates, nobody does that from any other vibration other than pure self-acceptance. So you'll find that a lot of times people get to that I give up phase before they're like, you know what, screw it. I'm either not going to have a relationship for the rest of my life or I'm going to have total love. I'm not going to settle, and this is who I am. And if this is who I am, I'm going to ask for what I need, I'm going to ask for what I want, and that type of mentality puts us in the vibration where we're now a match to somebody who is going to accept us exactly as we are, which is really what we're talking about with a soul mating twin flame relationship. So in order for us to attract that into our experience, we've got to get into the self-acceptance mode. That means we have to approve of things we hate about ourselves currently. And this is an interesting thing for people, and it's really, and it's funny because the people who are the least likely to meet their soulmates are spiritual people. People are like, wait, what?
Yeah, because we're always on a journey to improve and expand and discover more things that we want to do that's better and like about ourselves, I guess, and pick, the littlest faults about things that we don't like about ourselves.
Yep.
And there's always room for growth, always room for expansion. Yeah. So
which is like saying there's always room for different relationships that aren't my soulmate because I can't accept myself enough to be a match to that person, which is exactly the vibration that we see from most spiritual self-help types.
Boy, have I experienced that.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like what we've got to do is flip that completely on end and pretend that we're a little more divas than that. Mm-hmm. And we've got to look at see what you've got to pay attention to when it comes to attracting this into your life or even experiencing a better life, because that's what is going to happen if you start loving yourself. You got to start looking at the parts of you that you think are you. So, like, most likely, if we're in the self-help industry or we're spiritual people and we're trying to improve ourselves, there's something about ourselves which we think is part of us. We've already accepted it, that it is part of us, but we don't like that. We're not okay with this. We're trying to change it. Maybe I am a procrastinator. So if I've decided that I'm a procrastinator, that is now a personality trait which I identify with myself. The second you identify with something, you can't make an enemy of it without making an enemy of yourself. So we're going to flip this on end completely, and we're going to accept and fall in love with the fact that we're a procrastinator. And that means that the person who comes into our reality is going to accept us exactly as we are. And there's not going to be a problem with the fact that we're procrastinators. See, we don't understand that things are a problem about us until somebody else tells us it is. Like mom or dad or my work colleague or friend or wife or husband or whatever. So most of the reason that we condemn the aspects of ourselves that are part of ourselves is not actually emanating from us. It's not like, oh, I can't stand this about myself organically. No, it came from outside.
Yeah, it's somebody else's issue or a reflection of something that's mirroring what they've got going on in their life.
Yeah. And it feels different. That self-condemnation that is inspiring improvement, or I should say urging improvement, is a lot different than the inspiration that comes when you just genuinely want a different state. There's no resistance involved. If I just genuinely, let's say I'm a shy person, but I just genuinely want to be in front of the public eye, I won't feel that resistance to my own shyness that you get with people who need self-improvement. Instead, I'm going to sort of just feel inclined in that direction, and everything's going to be inspiring me in that direction. I might feel a little bit of fear, but I'm not going to feel that resistance to me and who I innately am. That is your indication that you're in rejection to some part of yourself.
Yeah. And when you're in rejection to a part of yourself, you often don't attract that twin flame.
Not at all. Not even often. You can't. It's a literal vibrational possibility.
But when you work on something that you're rejecting about yourself, you end up finding other things that you reject about yourself, and it's only when you truly approve and love yourself that you'll attract that. You know, through relationship coaching as well, and actually experiences with a lot of my friends, they kind of have this idea that they want this soulmate, but then they kind of give up halfway along the line and just settle for somebody and end up having a relationship, getting married, whatever, and you know, they're not really that happy. So what would you say to people like that?
I would always say hold out, but I'm the kind of person who understands that they're holding out and not being in relationships in order to get to the twin flame relationship is not the way to do it either. Because when you get into relationships along the line, even though they might not be that twin flame relationship, they will tell you more about your vibration. So it's like saying, I don't want to learn, I just want to get to the end step. But that's your learning process to get you to that step.
Absolutely, and you have to have a contrast in your life. So when you end up in a relationship that isn't your twin flame, you kind of learn from the contrast of what it is that you do not want and what you don't like, to know what it is that you do want to attract in your life. So you're clear about that, more focused on that. And then the next relationship, you can hopefully kind of attract that.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about the support that we have in the universe right now, okay? Because we're never alone, we're always guided. Some of us are kind of shut off to that guidance, or we might not recognize that we are guided, supported, loved by the universe. People often don't have faith in the universe. So let's kind of talk a little bit about those situations where someone who wants to develop their intuition, someone who wants to connect to higher forces and higher realms of that support and that guidance and trust in the universe. So what would they do in terms of connecting with guides, angels, you know, other forces that may be out there that are supporting us? So what's out there to support us, and how do we get that support? I know it's kind of like a really big question, but
oh, it's a really enormous question because there's too many beings and too many non-beings that are out there to support you. The most important thing that we got to realize is not that we have support from guides and things like that, it's that we have support from the larger universe. Because that's what we're the most afraid of. That's what we think we have to answer to. So we have to understand that we're an extension of that. So it obviously, as an extension of that, it has your best interest at heart all the time. There's no difference between yourself and that which we call God. You are just a furthest most extension of that God force energy. You are God self-actualizing, currently through a human perspective. And so that's the truth we really need to get to if we want to feel trust in the universe. And the way that I feel like is the best to do that is to prove to yourself that you create your own reality. And to do that, we have to do it in very small steps. We got to prove that we create a reality with really small things. We got to pick stuff that doesn't really mean anything to us first, because we don't have a lot of resistance relative to those subjects. Let's say flowers. I don't have a lot of resistance to the flowers. I don't have feelings one way or other about flowers. So if I sit down and I focus on flowers, flowers must show up in my reality. And when they show up in my reality, I start to realize just how much my mind is creating all of this. And the universe is not against me. It's literally like whatever I think about is an asking for, and the universe gives it. Once I see that tangibly, then I will understand the fact that the universe is only ever trying to fulfill what I am asking for on a subconscious and conscious level. As far as connecting with spirit guides, you all have them. I think one of the best things to do is to either go out of body to learn that art, or else you can invite them into the experience. But you have to be very in tune with your emotions, in tune with your sensations in order to do that. So you sit in the room. This is the best way to do it, I think. You sit in a room, dark room. You don't want any sort of interruptions, and you want to invite your guides to come forward one by one to introduce themselves. You might have an auditory experience, or you might, which is more common, have a sensation experience. I like to sort of liken it to if you are with some of your best friends, you know that your friends have a feeling. So if I even was to say the name of one of your friends, you would instantly get a bodily feeling relative to that friend. It's their signature, it's their imprint. All of our guides have these imprints. So if you sit there and you close your eyes and you invite them one by one, starting with your principal, I'd like the principal guide to step forward first. You will feel a sensation in your body to associate with this being. And you might feel them touch you, or you might feel the hair on the back of your neck stand up, or any number of responses to that energy. And you just want to memorize that energy. Because what you'll notice is that as you go about your day, you'll feel that, almost like you would if you were to walk into a room with your friend and the lights were off. You'd sort of know they were in the room.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can start interacting with them. Obviously, the more you focus on them, the more interactions you're going to have with them. So you start fueling it in that way, and then that will lead to, like, maybe you'll take your hand and do some automatic writing, or maybe you'll ask them, this is one of my favorite things to do. If we're not talking, directly to them yet, then I'll have people ask them a question and go, have themselves stand in front of a bookshelf and be drawn to a book and just, say, ask a question and say whatever book, page this flies open to, and whatever sentence I'm drawn to is the answer to the question. And it works with everything. The other day I actually did it with somebody, and we were in a tire store. So the magazines that are there are truck and tire magazines. And I'm like, look, if a spiritual question can be answered through this type of a magazine, then you know that the universe is talking to you. Absolutely. Sure enough, we peel it open and it's like, it's time to wait. I was laughing. Awesome. But yeah. So that it's kind of a matter of just playing with it and continuing to move forward with it and continuing to do things like that, and it'll start to become impossible to believe that you don't have the support and that they're not there, because the synchronicities will just be too great. And I think keeping a synchronicity journal is another good one for this.
Okay.
So you just write down any synchronicity. I was thinking about this, and this person called. What are examples of other synchronicities? Anything that essentially proves to you that there's something more than just you in this universe. I was, really wanting this giant deal, and I stood in line at a coffee shop, and then this guy behind me gave me his card, and it turns out he was a lawyer, the exact kind I was looking for, right? If you take note of those things, you start to see this cosmic, interwoven dance thing. Yeah. And it ceases to feel like you're in this alone.
Well, absolutely. So keeping journals are really important, being in tune with your feelings, and looking out for those synchronicities.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's worked for you the best?
Synchronicities, definitely. I come across them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't yet sort of started keeping a journal, but, synchronicities, and I kind of have the knowing of my guides being there supporting me. And the other thing that's really worked for me is I found that the time lag between the thought process in terms of the law of attraction, the time lag between thought and manifestation is reducing. I've manifested things instantly now. I mean, it used to take a long time, and now it's kind of, is that something about the general state of the dimension of our planet and where we're going, or is that more about being more in tune with your support guides? Both. Okay.
You'll notice that right now it's not a joke. The buffer time is disappearing, and that is, of course, part of the human evolutionary step. Mm-hmm. We are in a space where we need to recognize the God creatorship, essentially, that is innate within us. And as the buffer time disappears in this dimension, you'll notice that the time between thought and manifestation takes less time. That means we have to be a lot more careful.
Absolutely.
With what we're focused on. Because we don't have that leeway. But it's also, what you'll notice is because you are focusing on and aware of these truths, obviously anything you focus on gets bigger. And so the more aware you are, the faster you manifest. So those of us, it's sort of like one of those tools that you got to be careful with. Yet again, if you're the kind of person who's going to come into this awareness and into this knowledge and know that you create your own reality, you better watch out. Because once you know...
Absolutely, because so many people are thinking about the things that they don't want. That they don't want to create, they don't want to manifest, something that they're fearful about, and hence because they're putting a lot of energy and focus into those thoughts, that's what they're manifesting. And they're thinking, damn, I don't trust the universe doesn't have my back, and those sort of things. So it's really important for people to focus on what they actually want.
Oh yeah, and in case anybody out there wants to know, I make that mistake all the time. I come from a warrior family, so even I find myself, regardless of how much I know this stuff, falling into that pattern of like, what if,
So what do you do? Because
you
this is going to affect most people out there.
You use it to figure out what you want instead. So whatever you're worried about is an indication of what else you might want. So you figure out what you want, whittle it down so that you can imagine that. So I want to imagine that scenario. We all know if we're playing what if, then we're thinking suddenly we've projected this whole entire scenario in our mind. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get fired. Then I'm gonna lose my house. And then if I lose my house, I'll be on the street. Wait, I gotta go get food stamps. That'll be so embarrassing to get food stamps. I can't go get food stamps. See how it goes? That's a spiral. So when we're in that spiral, we have to realize what we would like to have happen instead. And so what we need to do is get ourselves into that vibration. So, let's play that example. If I'm worrying about losing my job, and I'm worrying about where that could go, that tells me that I want a job. But wait a minute, I just said that word. I don't really want a job. What is it that I want? I want to be able to make income at something which I enjoy. All right, what would that look like? What would that feel like? What would that sensation be like if I could put myself in that state today? And we actually give ourselves times every day to focus on that happening, which is something that most of us don't really do. We just sort of let our thoughts run around. We don't direct them towards something for a certain amount of time. And it's really kind of embarrassing to admit that we've been doing this when we realize that it takes just over 1 minute. It's tiny, almost 8 seconds over 1 minute is how long it takes for us to think something that must now show up physically in our environment as an opportunity or a thing. Wow. It must show up. And so if it takes just over 1 minute to focus on something which you want and you're not doing it,
Wow, it sounds so simple. 1 minute, 8 seconds to focus completely on what it is you want.
Yep.
So then, why are people not doing it? Why is it not happening? Why do they get the opposite of what they want? Because I guess they're spending more time focusing on the negative stuff.
It's because we don't trust that we create our own reality, and we're scared to prove that to ourselves. We're scared of it not being true. We're scared of both extremes. What happens if I do create my reality? If I do create my reality, that means that I created everything that made me suffer. Yeah. And if I don't create my reality, now I'm even more reinforced to this idea, which I have already sort of halfway bought into, that I'm powerless. And so we sort of are stuck. We're in this absolute stalemate. And it's really understandable why we would feel that way, but it's like being in quicksand. It's like, that we've got fight, flight, or freeze. Most of us in society are so powerless, we're in freeze right now. I don't want to prove to myself that I do create my own reality because of what that means. I don't want to prove to myself that I don't create my reality because of what that means. And so I don't want to risk this.
Sure. Wow, that's a lot to think about for people out there. Okay. So, ultimately, people need to focus on what they want and trust in the universe and just kind of play around, manifest a cup of coffee or something, and then manifest bigger things, etc.
Yes, and get into a state of allowing, because what we got to understand is that the universe never works in straight lines. It's sort of like, I want you to think of it like this. Human beings, with our limited perception, which is how we intended it, are a little bit like an ant on the floor of the house. Let's say that the ant wants to get to Africa, but it doesn't know how it's going to do that. And I'm pretty sure the ant's idea about how to get to Africa is going to be quite different than my idea. But I have more ultimate view. I understand that airplanes exist. I understand how to get the ant onto the airplane and then off onto African soil. But to that ant, that process, because it doesn't understand that process, is going to seem absolutely AWOL. Really, it was the fastest route. But that's not what it's going to seem like from that perspective. So what you'll notice in your own life is that you're going to be feeling like you're taking all these damn detours, and none of it's going to make sense until you look back on the whole process and say, oh my gosh, that wasn't a detour at all. It turns out I gained all of this awareness there, which was absolutely necessary to where I am today. Mm-hmm. So we got to stop looking for straight lines, and a lot of that is about surrendering.
Mm-hmm. And what's the best way of surrendering?
That's $1 million question. If you answer it, you're going to be the best self-help expert in the world. I don't know, because I don't manage it half the time. It's sort of like a day in and day out process of taking the path of least resistance and saying, look, I either get to feel better or worse. So what's going to make me feel better or worse? If it makes me feel better, I'll do it. If it makes me feel worse, I won't do it. And that's how I live my life. It's this very incremental process of going in the direction of what feels like relief.
Yeah.
That's how to go into a space of surrender. But it's a lot easier said than done, and Lord knows I mess up with that all the time.
Absolutely. We all do. I mean, the way in which I try to surrender is just to have faith that the universe has my back, and whatever happens, happens for a reason, you know?
See, that means you're in a higher vibratory state than even I'm in. This is an interesting thing, because you'll notice that people are in different vibrational set points relative to different things, right? I've got, like, a really good vibration relative to abundance, but relative to, like, the acceptance that the universe has my back based on my childhood with an abuser, So this is really good to note. For somebody who's in my vibration, just trusting doesn't work. It feels like lying to myself. For you, if you can do that and not lie to yourself, awesome, because that's where we want to be. But we have to, this is what is so essential, is that we work with people on an individual level based on where they are vibrationally, which is why I like inviting people one by one up on the stage, see? Because what's going to work for somebody who's totally in distrust about the benevolence of the universe is going to be different from somebody who understands the basic benevolence of the universe and just needs to get into a higher state of attracting things.
Cool.
So my hat goes off to you.
Thank you. You're too kind. Teal, earlier we talked about connecting with one's guides, principal guides, those sort of things, and you kind of mentioned a really useful technique. What about angels? And
it's the same thing. I don't differentiate between them.
Okay.
In fact, the majority of the time when guides or extraterrestrial beings were coming down to the human race, they were coming down in the beginning to convey messages. And back in that time, we would transfer messages across long distances via bird. And so birds became a symbol of like a messenger. Right. And so when they came down and projected the image of themselves with wings, that had nothing to do with anything. This is a multidimensional universe. You don't need wings to travel here from heaven. But that was a way of conveying to people that what they had to do is to convey a message, and they were conveying a message from a higher plane. So it became a symbolic image which we identified with them, and now it's like this, oh my gosh, attachment thing. Really, all they are guides. They're higher, usually higher order light being guides that come from an 11th dimensional awareness. Okay. And so you would address them the same way you would any other type of guide. I see them with, everybody has these. There's not one person on earth who doesn't have one of these beings that would be called angels, these higher light order beings.
Mm-hmm. And are they usually from the 11th dimension? Because there's a lot of dimensions out there, and it might be useful to have a discussion about the different dimensions and the support systems from there for the people that don't understand about the dimensions or aren't as clear.
Super difficult. All right, explaining, because this is the thing, we're trying to talk about other dimensions from a third dimensional understanding. It's like it doesn't work at all. But yeah, there are a lot of other dimensions out there, and the 11th dimensional awareness is the closest vibration that you get to source energy itself without dissipating, where you can't differentiate between one thing and the next thing because everything is one. And so most of the time, these beings who are coming down that we call angels are coming from that 11th dimensional perspective.
And are they with us all the time? Are they connected to us? Most people have a source stream connected to us, or another stream from a different dimension.
Yeah.
So they're connected to us all the time?
Always. Okay. Always. They are not obviously in other dimensions. You are not limited at all to space and time. Those things don't apply, they don't exist. And so it's like they're omnipresent. So it's not like I have to call them, oh wait, I have to get there, it's going to take me 3 hours to get there. Oh no, I'm going to get in a car crash before that point. Yeah, that's not the way it works, basically. It's literally thought thing. That's how it works in this universe. We just don't know that because of the buffer time.
Yeah.
But in other dimensional realities where there's no buffer time, it's thought thing. It's I think of Teal, I'm with Teal. Teal thinks of me, I'm with Teal. There's no... And you don't need language either. That's another physical dimensional thing which we got to understand. Thought is as good as communication to the rest of the universe.
Absolutely. And I've often picked up information and knowledge from other dimensions, other beings, by way of just knowing, a feeling of knowing, and thoughts. Is that how one picks things up, or are there other forms of knowing and picking things up in terms of the guidance and the support that you have?
Other than knowing, yeah, there's like 4 primary ways that you pick up on information in the physical dimension from extra dimensions. The first one is that just knowing, that's the information that's coming in through the crown chakra, which is why we'd see that with you, because your crown chakra is by far your most dominant chakra. So if you're pulling in through that, you're going to have the just knowing. You have the seeing, that's the images. So they images to you. That's coming in through the third eye, this chakra. You also have the emotional knowing, which is the empathic knowing. So they can communicate with you that way. You also have the physical knowing. That comes in through the solar plexus and the sacral chakra, where you're walking around, like let's say you walk into a room and you get that physical sensation, like your hair standing up, or else you get cold sweats. That's a form of communication from other dimensions to your body.
Okay.
So those are all ways that you can receive those information.
Great. So how can we be more balanced and open up the chakras to a point where we are receiving and knowing that we're receiving this information?
You work with your most dominant ability.
Mm-hmm.
So some people, you would be a just knower, so you would maximize that and you'd focus more on that, and that would eventually spill over.
Okay.
Or like if I'm an empath, which is actually the most common for people, if I feel things, let's say I feel them, then I go in the direction of that feeling, I notice it, I recognize it, and I milk it, meaning that, okay, what else do I feel? I walk into a room and I'm practicing feeling. If you fuel that more, then it will basically reach this atrophy point where no more information can spill through that venue, and it must spill through other venues. Then maybe I get my very first image. Then maybe I have my first clairaudient experience.
I see. Excellent. Yeah. That's really interesting because I just know, and things happen, and I can't explain why I know, how I know. I just know things. And
you damn spiritual intuitive.
yeah. And then I wanted to actually see my kind of guides or angels or whatever, this extra dimensional being. So I kind of focused on that, meditated on that, and all of a sudden I started seeing certain things. But my preference is the knowing and not the seeing. Mm-hmm. But when I asked specifically to see, it kind of worked. So I guess it's just being more focused on the other areas as well.
Yeah, if you want to. That would definitely work for some people, but it would have been inevitable for you. If you continued with the knowing, it would have been inevitable for you to start seeing.
Okay. And the practice of meditation, I guess, is really important. Yeah?
Yes. Well, here's the thing. Meditation is only as useful as your resistant thoughts. Mm-hmm. So basically, the universe, you came down here to create. You didn't come down here to not be in the physical dimension. You chose to be in the physical dimension. So if you could be in the physical dimension, interacting with it in a positive vibrational creation pattern way, then it would be better for you to do that than meditate any day. But we use meditation to stop thought. That's its primary use. So if here I am walking along the train and I'm getting into a negative spiral, if you can allow yourself to meditate, you've stopped thought long enough to then step into positive creational thought. So that is its number one use. And anything other than that is really what we would call an out-of-body experience more so than a meditation. Right. Like any of your basic meditations where you're going into your body and exploring your own pain, your pain, giving it a visual image and stuff, that's an out-of-body experience, actually. That's you sort of releasing your consciousness from this perspective and taking it into another perspective. That's out of body. That's not meditation per se. So the issue is that we've got one type of language to describe a great many states, a great many things that we are doing.
Absolutely, because I guess more people know about meditation because of what's out there than out-of-body experiences. And it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because what I thought was a meditation, when I've meditated and kind of been in a place and gone through past lives or gone through to different dimensions or a different star system, for example, I thought that was a meditation, whereas actually it seems that it's more of a kind of an out-of-body experience. So
Yes.
I didn't get any physical sensations to say that's an out-of-body experience. I kind of went into this meditation, and the next minute I was there on a different star system doing something completely different and knowing what my purpose on this life is because of the links from what I was doing there. So that's an out-of-body experience.
Yep.
So people say...
It gets more real, see?
Right. Okay.
You'll notice that the more that you do that, the more that it will seem like we're in this body doing something else. And this is where it gets sort of an issue, and it's where you got to decide for yourself how much of this you're ready for. Because if you continue to do these out-of-body experiences, the line between that reality and this reality will literally cease to exist. And at that point, you're pretty much wondering what's real and what's not real.
Okay. That actually sounds like a good place to be in.
It's scary. It gets really scary too because timelines disappear, and here you go. It's like I feel like this is the time the piano music comes in and plays sad Teal music. But what gets really difficult about it is that you can live whole lifetimes before coming back in 10 minutes to the body that you're living in now.
Oh wow! So because time is linear, when you're out of body in a different dimension or a different place, you could live a whole lifetime there. That's what you're saying.
Yes, and then come back and wake up in the morning.
And it's like only a few hours have gone here, or a few minutes even.
Yeah, and you're more attached to a different identity than when you're living, and you have to remind yourself all about this life. And it's really, really hard.
Okay. So when you decide to go out of body, do you choose where you want to go, or are you guided to where you need to go?
One or the other. Thought becomes thing outside the dimension, but if you ask the universe to take you where it, from its perspective, where it wants you to go, then it will take you there.
Okay. So how can one practice more out-of-body experiences, and what do they need to do to get out of body?
What you need to do to get out of body is to increase your awareness of the fact that this is not all that exists. Because the more your brain buys into that idea, the more it's going to allow your consciousness to split from it. It's got to release its own fear and not think that it's going to lose itself, essentially. So on top of that, which that's really what we're doing in spiritual practice anyway, so we don't really need to spend a crap ton of time on that. If anyone's going to be watching this video, they're already going to be sort of getting their brain into that set point of what could be other than this, you know? So besides that, what we need to be doing is spending time on actually trying to get out of body. And the way you do that is you go into a meditative state, but you set the intention to go beyond, or you set the intention, fill in the blank, I want to go visit X, right? Or I want the universe to take me where it wants me to go, or I want to view myself from above. Any kind of these intentions is where your consciousness is going to take you, because it will respond to your desire immediately. So then you start to recognize your unphasing. That's the super crucial process. When your consciousness unphases from the physical dimension, you're going to hit a great many stages. The first stage, of course, being the vibrational stage, where you're going to start to feel numbness,
Sure.
or else tingling. And what you've got to do is focus on that energy and spread that energy throughout the totality of your body. Because I want you to think about this almost like you've put your hand through another dimension, and so it's starting to tingle that way. So if you continue to go, it'll absorb your whole entire body. It's just a good visual to sort of help yourself with that process. So once your whole body is buzzing and vibrating, you got to anticipate the fact that it's going to scare the crap out of you. Most of the time it scares people back into body.
Yeah.
But we got to just keep you surrendering. This is the practice of surrendering. Once you feel that resistance, that, oh my gosh, you go, you know what? I'm breathing it in and I'm going straight into it. So you kind of accept that, the overtaking, and you let yourself go into this other dimension in the universe. And then I think it helps sometimes to say, I now open my eyes to the other side, essentially, or something like that, whatever works for you. And you visualize by essentially opening your eyes. Even though their eyes are physically closed, you're visualizing opening your eyes, and you're looking for impressions. Your vibration right now is much closer to the physical dimension than it is to the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th dimensions, and so at first you're only going to get impressions. I want you to expect that it's like you're a little tiny baby, And when a little baby comes into the third dimension, it can't see the third dimension. It's like, ah. So if you study anything about the way babies see when they're first born, that's what it's like. I can't see anything. I'm just seeing forms and shapes and lights sometimes, But the more that it practices seeing, the more it sees.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it will go outside the dimension. If you are noticing what you're seeing and you continue going and going further and going further, and that's how it works. Each time you get out of body, you go further.
Wow.
And then you can start playing around with now, and a lot of this is organic, meaning that the desires will emanate from you. So maybe I'm there and maybe I feel myself float up to the ceiling and I think, maybe it'd be cool to turn around. So you just turn around, and that's what it is. It's an exploration. There's no right or wrong way to do that. I mean, anybody like me can give you things that can be cool to do, or tricks or whatever, but this really is an organic experience of exploration into the unknown bits of you.
So people talk about doing this when they're asleep, so it's like lucid dreaming and that kind of stuff. But can it be done when you're awake? Because one of the experiences
that's my favorite way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. That's great. Because I said one of my major experiences was while I was awake. So that's really cool. Excellent. So more out of body stuff. Yay. Excellent. So Teal, is there anything else that you want to talk about today?
No, I just really hope that people. I really hope that people come, to these workshops to interact with each other, because it can be really super awesome. I know that most of us feel isolated in our own realities, especially those of us that are spiritual and have not yet found our tribes, essentially. It can become really lonely, and you can feel like you're this pioneer out there on the edge with everyone looking at you like, what did they smoke this morning? But I think it's a good idea that those of us that think on this wavelength connect with each other. So it would be my hope that people would show up not just for the healing experience, but for the connection with other people. Because the reality is, if you can show up in the same room with this person, you are a match to them in some way. So either way, we're gaining serious knowledge about ourselves out of the experience, and maybe we find a lifelong friend. Yeah. And that's more beneficial, I think, than anything that any of us could do as teachers.
Or a lifelong, soulmate, as is the case with the last London workshop.
Yes.
Excellent. That's so cool. So for people that don't know, Teal is coming to the United Kingdom. The workshop is in London on the 5th of April. So tickets are available from thespiritualcatalyst.com, or connect with me on my Facebook page and I'll guide you to where you need to go. Any questions, feel free to connect to me. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the 5th of April. So that's going to be super awesome. Really
I'm looking forward to it too.
Excellent. So,
and next time, maybe you'll be doing the workshop with me.
Yay! Well, that is a vision. That's going to happen at some point. That's cool. So, as a kind of a leaving thought, do you have any kind of words of wisdom for anyone watching this? Your message to humanity, your message to people that's watching this video?
Everyone puts me on the spot there, and I'm like, yeah, okay, today it's going to be real simple. Life is literally as simple as this. From any moment you have a decision. Mm-hmm. You have a decision to feel better or worse. Mm-hmm. So at all moments of the day, you should be deciding to do what feels better. And that's really a process of trusting your own emotion. But life does not get more complicated than that. And ironically, if you were to go in the direction of what felt good right now, what felt better right now. So let's say I'm going to a party or not, feel better or worse? Feels worse, okay, so I'm staying home. If we were making decisions like that all day, every day, we could not avoid our purpose if we wanted to. It would not be possible. So what I want to instill on this particular episode, whatever this is, what I want to instill is the idea that this life is one of ease. It's not very difficult. You do not have to know the full picture in order to realize your purpose. You do not have to know really anything other than what feels good. And if you go in that direction, then everything you've been asking for is going to be yours because it's meant to be. That's pretty much it.
That's so cool, and yet it's so simple. So just do what feels good and trust the universe. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Teal. It's been nice seeing you again, and look forward to seeing you on the 5th of April.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you too.
Excellent. Take care. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.